A number of weeks ago, I did a video covering my wild idea to connect LAX to Orange County, California, most notably Disneyland. I proposed doing this through a very long extension of the LA Metro C line. The feedback I got was, well, mixed. The like to dislike ratio was pretty good. It was my most viewed video on my channel as of when I wrote this script, and I ended up with a decent number of new subscribers as a result of the video. I also got a mention in the end of contest video for fellow YouTuber Classy Whale's One Line More contest. But it was also by far my most controversial video, based on the comments I got. So, in the spirit of being open to feedback and learning, I'm going to look at some of the criticisms of my proposed route and how I think my idea could be improved upon. The first variety of critique is a pretty easy one to address: the fact that I struggle to pronounce some things correctly. Most infamously, the fact that I didn't pronounce Artesia correctly. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing it correctly now, but if I didn't, please let me know. The irony is that I've given a hard time to people saying Reese's incorrectly, to people who call it Reese's. Needless to say, I've had a taste of my own medicine. Or perhaps a taste of my own peanut butter cup, since I mentioned Reese's. Now that we've gotten the pronunciation issue out of the way, let's get to the other major critiques. One of the critiques I got with my previous C line proposal is that it's too long of a route. I agree that it was a long route, but I think my mentality when I created the route was, well, LA Metro can run a long route, as they already run the longest light rail route in the world in their A line. However, some comments noted that the A line's length is something to avoid rather than replicate. So, even though I had originally brushed off the concerns about length, it is definitely an issue I wanted to consider when thinking about whether I wanted to modify my original proposal, and if so, how. Another critique is that my previous proposal went way too much into Orange County for this to be feasible, in the opinions of many viewers. The biggest argument I heard around this is that there is no way the political leadership in Orange County would be in any way down with having LA Metro extend that deeply into Orange County. This criticism left me asking a bigger question: should my rail line fantasies account for political realities? I think that attempting to answer this question is the subject of its own video. But for the purposes of this video, though, I'll say that I did consider political realities when thinking about if, and if so, how, I wanted to modify my C line extension proposal. And a third major critique I got was that this paralleled the planned Southeast Gateway line for LA Metro a little too much. I was initially resistant to this critique, because the destination of the C line proposal I had was going to be different from the Southeast Gateway line proposal. But now, I think I get why people made that criticism. There's already a transfer expected between the proposed Southeast Gateway line and the existing C line. And if my C line proposal turned into reality, you'd have the C line again come very close to the Southeast Gateway line at Studebaker Road and Artesia Boulevard. And that's not far beyond the Southeast Gateway line transfer with the portion of the C line that already exists. So even though I was initially resistant to this criticism, I've become very receptive to it. One thing that I will do to prevent this issue from happening in the future is that my Metro Dreaming map of the LA Metro will show existing lines, lines expected to be built in the near future, and the lines I've proposed thus far. Personally, I need something visual on a map to remind me that, oh, this would parallel this other proposed line a bit too much. These were the biggest critiques I heard, as well as my thoughts on said critiques. But did these critiques have an impact on my C line proposal? The answer, actually, is yes. It had a major impact. To incorporate the first two pieces of feedback, I decided to split the line in two, one of them being an Orange County centric line, and the other being the C line extension. I'll talk about the Orange County centric line in a video far in the future. as I think that merits its own video, and as I think I want to focus on outlining my local rail transit for Los Angeles County before even dealing with the Orange County Centric Rail Transit. So, what would that modified C line extension look like? I'd have the line head from its current Norwalk terminus and towards Imperial Highway. And on Imperial Highway, there would be a stop at Imperial Highway and Norwalk Boulevard. Plans I've come across for extending the C line east tend not to have a stop there, but I do. Here's why. The stop there would offer several bus connections that would be completely missed if I didn't have a stop there. The following stop would be at the Norwalk Santa Fe Springs Transportation Center, a connection that many in the area are craving. And I can see why many are craving this. A C line train to the Norwalk Santa Fe Springs Transportation Center would significantly improve mass transit connectivity between Los Angeles and Orange counties, since the transportation center would connect to Metrolink's Orange County line. The route would continue east along Imperial Highway all the way to its stop at La Mirada Boulevard, so that the city of La Mirada could be connected with the system. Having a C line extension continue east all the way to La Mirada before it starts going south also addresses the third criticism I talked about, which was that my previous C line proposal paralleled the proposed Southeast Gateway line too much. The line would then go on La Mirada Boulevard until it gets to Beach Boulevard, and then it would run along Beach Boulevard for a time. The following stop would be at Beach Boulevard and Orangethorpe Avenue. This stop would offer multiple bus connections, as well as connections to a couple of shopping malls. The line would then continue south along Beach Boulevard to the intersection with La Palma Avenue, which is near a major tourist attraction called Knott's Berry Farm. This is a tourist attraction I did not propose a direct connection to in my previous iteration of the C line. Having a stop at this location seems like a very good idea. I would then have a stop at Beach Boulevard and Lincoln Avenue, at which point the train turns eastward along Lincoln Avenue. But a stop at this intersection is good, because it's an important transfer point for people who want to make a transfer to or from the Beach Boulevard or Lincoln Avenue buses. The train on Lincoln Avenue would then have its first stop on Brookhurst Street. Land use isn't impressive around this stop, but it does offer a connection to the Octa Route 35. The following stop would be at Lincoln Avenue and Euclid Street. Once again, land use is unimpressive around this station, but it connects with Octa's Route 37. Should some of these stops spur transit-oriented development? Absolutely. Would it happen? We shall see. And then in downtown Anaheim, the C line would then turn south on Harbor Boulevard after going on Lincoln Avenue. Between there and the end of the line, the C line would run along the same path as an Orange County Centric line I have in mind, with the Orange County Centric line making local stops and the C line making express stops. But if people think that it should be the other way around, with the C line making local stops, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Along Harbor Boulevard, the train's first stop would be in downtown Anaheim, between Lincoln Avenue and the Center Street Promenade. The stop after then would be for Disneyland, over by the current Harbor Boulevard stop at Disneyland for some of the buses in that area. So, despite my heavy edits to the line, this would still connect LAX to Disneyland, something that I desperately wanted to do with my C line extension proposal. So yes, you can take the train from the plane to the organization that made the movie Planes. And then the following stop would be at Harbor Boulevard and Catella Avenue. This stop would serve the Anaheim Convention Center, as well as a ton of hotels that serve people going to both Disneyland and the Convention Center. The line would then go along Catella Avenue until it nears the Anaheim Regional Transportation Intermodal Center, or ARTIC. Near ARTIC, the train veers off of Catella Avenue so that it can reach the transit center. Said transit center would offer connections to Amtrak, Metrolink, and buses. Oh, and the stop is near the venues for the Los Angeles Angels and the Anaheim Ducks, which is pretty handy. Anyway, Arctic is the terminus of my proposed sea line. Anything beyond here, heading towards Orange, Santa Ana, or Irvine, is probably best served by its own Orange County centric line. Before giving my thoughts on this modified sea line proposal, I'd like to ask people to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content on imagining better rail transit in the United States. Anyway, back to my video. Could you argue that I'm pushing this line a bit much into Orange County, even with this modified sea line proposal? Yes, you could. But I think that you could also pitch such an extension as one that is focused on creating easier mass transit access from LAX to major engines of the Orange County tourism and entertainment industries. So, in a way, this line can be pitched as benefiting Orange County too, even if the system serving this part of Orange County is LA County centric. If you extend this line beyond Arctic, though, as I did in my previous iteration of this proposal, that's a more difficult argument to make. I could also imagine some people questioning why I'm proposing a sea line extension to Anaheim rather than an extension of the proposed Southeast Gateway line to Anaheim. The reason is simple. Because, at least for now, there are more people flying to LA than taking the train to LA. Evidence of this is the fact that there were 1 million Amtrak passengers who used Union Station in Los Angeles in 2023, but over 76.5 million who use LAX in 2024. So, you are over 76 times more likely to arrive in LA by way of flying than by Amtrak. And, as long as that's the case, I'd prioritize a line from LAX to Anaheim over a Southeast Gateway line that would go from LA's Union Station to Anaheim. Taking mass transit in a city that isn't your own is already plenty stressful. As people would already have to transfer between the LAX People Mover and the Sea Line, I think forcing people to make a second transfer in order to get to Anaheim is a bridge too far. Well, more like a set of tracks too many. A third critique I could see is that some of the land use around some of the stops is rather, mediocre and indicative of car centrism. There are lots of parking lots near many of these stops. And perhaps the worst of the worst is the Brookhurst and Lincoln stop with a Jiffy Lube at one of the corners, followed by a Lincoln and Euclid stop that has a car wash and a wheel and tire stop at two of its corners. Destination stops like downtown Anaheim, Disneyland, and Arctic are going to get a lot of ridership. But some of these other stops may suffer with ridership without rezoning efforts. But land use around some of these stops could be worse. The stop could be in the middle of a highway, for example. We've never seen that before. Have we? Oh. Oops. I guess we have. There's one other concern I have about my proposal, though. That concern? The fact that I've seen literally nobody else come up with this route proposal worries me a bit. Is it because this proposal is a great idea everyone has missed? Or an awful idea nobody thinks is wise? If it's a great idea everyone has missed, though, I do hope this video gains some traction. Overall, I think that this is a much more sensible line than my previous proposal I had for the Sea Line. And, despite it being more sensible in my opinion, I think even this modified extension would rid the Sea Line of its reputation for being the line from nowhere to nowhere. Providing a concept to end this dubious reputation was what enticed me to enter a Sea Line extension into Classy Whale's One Line More contest anyway. By going from LAX to the likes of Knott's Berry Farm, downtown Anaheim, Disneyland, and the home of two professional sports teams, I think that reputation would be left behind in the past if this were built. Once again, I thought highly of my previous Sea Line proposal. And then it got mixed reviews in the comment section. So make of that what you may. Speaking of the comment section, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this overhauled Sea Line extension proposal in the comment section below. Thank you, and have a good day.